Before the battle begins, the war is already decided inside the mind. This is Machiavelli's most brutal insight into psychological warfare. You don't need to defeat a person on the battlefield if you've already broken them internally. If their hands still move but their spirit has cracked, you've already won. The most ruthless part is you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to make a threat. You only need to introduce doubt, because once a person starts doubting themselves in your presence, they start losing to a ghost you implanted in their mind. Machiavelli's golden rule of intimidation is this: it is not necessary to be strong. It is necessary to appear strong. Before a competitor ever challenges you, whether in business, influence, status, or attraction, you must build a myth, a psychological illusion so vivid they begin measuring themselves against your image, not your reality. Maintain composure when others panic. Speak less, but with absolute certainty. Move with calm detachment, as if you're used to control. You don't need a track record. You only need posture, because posture makes people assume you've already won somewhere else, and assumption is a silent killer of confidence. This is one of Machiavelli's coldest tactics, to undermine them gently. You don't call them weak directly. You don't argue. You don't insult. You imply. You say things like, "You remind me of someone I beat once," or "This will be interesting. I usually don't get challenged this easily," or "Don't stress. Everyone improves over time." These aren't attacks. They're faint smiles with a dagger underneath. The competitor will never call it out, but they'll feel it. They'll question themselves, and in questioning themselves, they lower their guard. Every competitor carries something inside them they hope no one sees: an insecurity, a weakness, a past failure. If you spot it, mention it, but not directly. Use suggestion, not accusation. Let's say you're about to debate someone you know is insecure about their lack of experience. You say, "You have guts." Most people would wait until they're ready, or "Reminds me of when I was starting out, making all the rookie mistakes," or "Impressive confidence." Some would say overconfidence, but I like it. You force them to look inward. You turn the spotlight on their flaw without even naming it. Now they'll spend the next hour trying to prove they're not what you implied, and in doing that, they'll lose flow, lose sharpness, lose dominance. You didn't attack their ideas. You attacked their identity. That's how you win before it begins. Power isn't always a direct contest. Often it's a contest of perception. Before someone competes with you, there's a crowd, spectators, mutuals, colleagues, judges, peers. Your job is to win them first. This is because when someone walks into a space where everyone already respects you, they walk in smaller. They feel like an intruder. They act like a challenger, and a challenger is always chasing the one in command. To do this Machiavellian style, show subtle charm to the crowd. Use humor that's light but biting. Make confident statements that frame you as the one with experience and history. And then, this is key, acknowledge your competitor as if they're trying hard. Say, "They've got spirit," or "Let's see how this goes," or "I remember my first time being in this position." You're not mocking them. You're infantilizing them, and the audience will adopt your tone, even subconsciously. Now your competitor doesn't just feel alone. They feel outnumbered. There's no need to directly brag. Just let them witness your dominance in a different space, a social interaction where others respect you, a moment where people ask for your input, a task you complete effortlessly. Machiavelli would call this passive intimidation. You don't throw it in their face. You let them observe, because the human brain does something cruel when it sees another person being admired or respected. It starts comparing. It starts shrinking. It starts assuming, if they can do all that so effortlessly, what chance do I have? This technique is especially powerful when combined with silence. Let them see you win without explaining, flaunting, or seeking approval. That silence makes the win look normal, and what looks normal to you looks impossible to them. Here's the most brutal part. Even if they're prepared, even if they've trained, even if they're confident, you don't have to overpower them. You only have to make them pause, make them wonder, what if I'm not as good as I think? Or what if they're better than they look? Or what if I lose and everyone sees it? That one crack in their mindset becomes the entry point for collapse. The way to inject it is to ask a simple question before the confrontation. You sure you're ready for this? Or have you done this before? Or let's see if you can handle pressure. You don't say it like a threat. You say it with a smile, like you're curious. But curiosity kills certainty, and a person without certainty is already defeated. This seems simple, but in a moment where tension rises, in a boardroom, in a stage debate, in a subtle social battle, most people flinch. Machiavelli would not, because the eyes are the gateway to dominance. Hold eye contact a second longer than they're comfortable with. Stay still. Don't blink quickly. Don't look down or away. Maintain calmness like you've done this 100 times, and if they break it, they just told everyone in the room who's already won. The unseen battle is the most powerful one. By the time the actual competition begins, they're no longer facing just you. They're facing the doubts you implanted, the audience you influenced, the image you built, the silence you weaponized. That is why Machiavelli didn't wait for confrontation. He crushed his opponents before they even knew they were in a game. That's the level of psychological warfare that leaves no room for resistance, and it only begins with one choice. Don't attack their actions. Attack their confidence, and the war ends before it starts. Confidence is not a trait, it's a fragile construction built on memory, on perception, on small wins stacked over time. And if you know how it's built, you know how to break it. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He knew that no man enters battle alone. He brings his self-belief with him. Once that belief is compromised, even the strongest man becomes hesitant, timid, calculating instead of dominant. Hesitation is the mother of defeat. So, in this part, we dive deeper into the advanced techniques used not to fight, but to fracture, not to confront, but to corrode someone from within. To the Machiavellian mind, the real win is when they walk in already doubting themselves. Every person has a performance mode. They speak better, move smoother, and act sharper when they feel unseen. But the moment you put a spotlight on them, you shatter that fluidity. You make them hyper-aware of every movement, every word. This is where Machiavelli would strike. Before they compete with you, casually draw attention to something they do. You've got a unique speaking style, it's interesting, or your posture's different than most people's. Confident or nervous, or you always do that thing with your hands, habit or strategy. None of these are insits. They're nudges, tiny surgical comments that activate self-consciousness. Now, when they enter the arena, they're no longer present. They're in their head, second-guessing everything they do, and that is the beginning of self-collapse. Confidence thrives when a person feels exceptional, so the trick is simple. Make them feel ordinary. Even if they're good, even if they've achieved something, you shatter it by quietly comparing them to someone greater. You remind me of X. He was on another level, but similar energy. Or, this is impressive. Still not as sharp as that girl from last year, but definitely solid. Or, oh, you're doing this? Interesting. I saw someone else dominate with that style once. Now they no longer feel like the protagonist. They feel like a replacement, a watered-down version of someone better. And when that feeling sets in, they stop playing to win. They start playing to prove they're good enough. And that shift kills their edge. One of the darkest tricks in Machiavelli's arsenal was overloading the enemy with preparation. You do this by subtly suggesting that you're far more dangerous than you appear. You probably did your homework on me. I wouldn't blame you. Or, I've done this a few too many times. I get bored if it's not challenging. Or, hope you're not underestimating what you're walking into. You're not telling them what you'll do. You're telling them how much they should fear it. Now they spiral. They overthink. They rehearse too much. They become rigid. They start obsessing over the outcome before the game has begun. This is psychological suffocation, and it causes people to walk into confrontation already exhausted. The best part is that you didn't even raise your voice. One of the most Machiavellian tools in social warfare is the well-timed compliment. Not sincere, not generous, just ambiguous enough to make them question your intention. Try these. You're better than I expected, or this might actually be close, or you've improved a lot since I last saw you. These sound like encouragement, but what they are really saying is that you didn't expect much, that you see them as lesser, that you are the standard. Suddenly they feel small again because they realize they're still chasing your approval, not competing, not dominating, just chasing. That's when their confidence dies quietly in their own chest. In social environments, silence is terrifying because when everyone's speaking and one person is just watching, that person owns the room. Machiavelli would walk into a setting and say less, speak only when necessary, and hold eye contact just long enough to make people wonder what he's thinking. When your competitor tries to joke, don't laugh. When they share plans, just nod. When they look to you for a response, delay it. This breaks their rhythm, because now you're the mystery, and people fear what they can't read. Your silence becomes a mirror. They project their worst fears onto it, and those fears become louder than your words ever could be. A man's confidence isn't just built on inner beliefs. It's reinforced by his circle, the people who hype him up. So what if you subtly infect that circle? You don't need to turn their friends into enemies. Just plant quiet seeds of doubt. Compliment their friends more. Subtly question the competitor's choices in front of them. Say things like, "You've got sharp people around you. You'll need that." Now their friends start second-guessing them. They begin treating the competitor as someone who needs help, not someone who leads. When their inner circle stops radiating confidence, it shatters from the inside. The competitor starts doubting even the people closest to them, and when that happens, you've fractured the last line of their defense. This is Machiavelli's final, most disturbing rule. Never acknowledge the competition. The second you publicly recognize someone as a rival, you elevate them. You say, "We're equals," but you say nothing. You behave as if you're operating in a different tier, that what they do is irrelevant to your path. You don't chase. You don't compare. You don't even care. Nothing destroys a challenger's confidence more than this cold truth. They don't even see me as a threat. That's the knife, not in their back, but in their identity, and it cuts deeper than any insult could. This is how the Machiavellian elite win. Not through battle, not through confrontation, but through a silent campaign of erosion. They don't beat you. They rearrange the battlefield, so by the time you arrive, you don't even believe in your own weapons anymore. The throne is already theirs, and you never had the strength to climb. True power doesn't confront, it disorients. Machiavelli never sought victory through brute force. He sought it by shaping the battlefield inside the opponent's head. He believed that once a person starts questioning themselves in your presence, the war is already over. They're no longer trying to win. They're trying not to lose. Now we move into the sharpest tools of all, the final psychological traps that dismantle confidence, not by pushing, but by pulling, not by aggression, but by absence, suggestion, and superiority that remains just out of reach. A competitor expects you to care, to fight, to react, to protect your status. But what if you don't? What if you act like nothing is at stake? No flinching, no aggression, no emotional shifts. You observe calmly. You speak sparingly. You act like victory is your default state, not a pursuit. This unnerves them more than any insult, because they can't sense urgency in you, and if you don't seem to be trying, they begin wondering if they're even close to your level. This is Machiavelli's illusion of effortless power. Make your rival feel like they're running toward a finish line you're already past, because nothing suffocates confidence faster than realizing, I'm the only one who's struggling here. Most people operate on narrow tracks. They speak a certain way. They dress a certain way. They behave how people expect. You don't. You switch tones mid-conversation. You speak gently, then sharply. You shift between charm and cold precision. This inconsistency breaks their internal model of who you are. They can't predict you, and what you can't predict, you can't compete against. Machiavelli knew if your opponent can't define you, they can't prepare for you. So become multipolar. In meetings, be silent, then speak with piercing clarity. In public, be composed, then deliver a line that cuts like a blade. When they try to anticipate, confuse. When they try to label, evolve. Make them train for a fight they no longer recognize, because their confidence depends on a clear target. Remove the target. Shatter the confidence. No one succeeds in a vacuum. Every competitor has a support system, the applause, the reinforcement, the allies. Machiavelli understood the value of strategic isolation. The goal is not to remove people from their life. It's to make them feel alone in a crowded room. Do this by dominating conversations before they speak, redirecting group focus toward you, and subtly ignoring their presence during key moments. Talk about them, not to them. Over time, others begin mirroring your tone. People follow power, and when they see you treating the competitor as less important, they unconsciously adopt that same frame. The result is your rival walks into the arena with no backing energy, no echo chamber, no one hyping them up. Without reinforcement, their confidence begins to rot from the inside out. A confident person rides on rhythm. They gain energy from their own small wins, a strong line in a debate, a clever point in conversation, a small laugh from the crowd. Every little moment builds their internal fire. Your job is to put out the fire before it burns. When they say something clever, nod but don't react. When they make a joke, counter it immediately with something darker, more impactful. When they feel they've made progress, change the subject with disinterest. You're not attacking. You're interrupting their self-perception. It tells them, even at your best, you barely moved the needle. They stop stacking momentum, and a competitor without momentum becomes hesitant, then insecure, then irrelevant. People walk into competition with a story. I'm the underdog. I'm the expert. I'm the new blood. I'm the one who brings fresh energy. These stories power their confidence. Machiavelli's brilliance was in reframing those stories into weaknesses. You're bold, sometimes overly so. Let's hope that doesn't cost you clarity. Or you're new here, right? That's refreshing. A clean slate also means no record. Or you're confident. That's good. But confidence without experience is dangerous. Now they start rethinking their own role. Their fuel becomes poison. Their pride turns to paranoia, and they begin questioning the very identity they came in with. Once you do this, you haven't just attacked their performance. You've sabotaged their core foundation. Machiavelli's coldest tactic wasn't confrontation. It was group manipulation through subtlety. When someone makes a mistake or says something poorly thought out, you don't need to mock them. You just stay silent, maintain eye contact, look around the room and maybe raise an eyebrow slightly. Everyone else picks up on your signal. They start laughing awkwardly. They glance around. They distance themselves from the mistake. Now your competitor has two enemies, you and their own embarrassment. This is surgical. You didn't insult. You didn't react. You let the silence burn. Once they feel socially humiliated, even for a second, their self-trust fractures. That fracture spreads like a virus through their performance. In every power struggle, there comes a crunch moment, a point where emotions rise, where something goes wrong, where the spotlight intensifies. Most people, no matter how talented, crack. They talk faster, they get louder, they explain, they defend. However, if you stay still, collected, and unmoved, you destroy their belief in their superiority because internally they think, if they're not even reacting to this, maybe they really are ahead of me. Even if you don't have the upper hand, act like you do, because belief in your own composure will be mirrored by the audience, and even worse for them, it will be mirrored by their own mind. Machiavelli's entire philosophy of power rests on this. It is better to control belief than behavior. Because once you command a man's belief about himself, his behavior adjusts automatically, and his defeat becomes inevitable. The confidence of your opponent is not armor. It's glass, painted gold, yes, but still fragile. If you hit the right point, just once, with the right amount of force, or the right shade of doubt, or the right silence at the right time, it doesn't crack. It collapses. The ultimate Machiavellian victory is invisible. Your enemy smiles. They stand tall. They perform. But underneath, their hands shake. Their voice stumbles. Their decisions hesitate. You've already done what most never even attempt. You've broken their inner frame. You haven't fought them. You haven't insulted them. You haven't even acknowledged them as a threat. You simply made them unsure of themselves, and that is a wound that bleeds silently until they collapse without anyone touching them. This final part gives you the closing weapons, the ones that ensure they doubt everything, including their own potential. People don't just trust enemies or friends. They especially trust those who seem neutral. That's where the brilliance lies. Machiavelli would never always be the one delivering the knife. He would delegate the doubt. He would say nothing himself, but ensure a comment was whispered by someone in the room, plant an idea in someone else's head, who would then echo it to the target, or casually say, "I heard someone say you were over-preparing. Any truth to that?" Suddenly, the competitor is looking around. They don't know who's doubting them. It could be anyone, and that social paranoia is the final blow. When they can't locate where the threat is coming from, they assume it's everywhere. Before a competitor steps into the spotlight, define the narrative. Don't let them write their own story. Write it for them and make it slightly humiliating. For example, he's got a lot of enthusiasm. Let's see if that translates into substance. Or, she's untested but bold. That kind of energy is rare and risky. Or, reminds me of a past contender. Great potential, but lacked control under pressure. You didn't insult them. You praised them strategically, with a blade inside the rose. Now the audience has expectations, and more importantly, your opponent is forced to battle not just you, but your framing. They now feel like they have to escape the story you've already painted, which means they're no longer focused on excellence. They're focused on correction. That's not strength, that's reaction, and reaction is always weak. Confidence thrives when people believe in their long-term role. They imagine themselves as a permanent force, but Machiavelli would erode that by suggesting they're just passing through. Say things like, "People come and go. Let's see how long this wave lasts." Or, "They're making noise now. We'll see if that still echoes next year." Or, "It's good to have fresh faces. Rotation is important in this game." This weapon is subtle and ruthless because now they no longer feel like a presence. They feel like a guest, and when someone feels temporary, they behave tentatively. Even if they win in the moment, they'll carry a strange hollowness inside because you've disconnected them from legacy, and legacy is what feeds confidence long-term.